Hello and welcome to Unfinished Vizness, the show where half-formed ideas, stuck dashboards and creative chaos get the spotlight they deserve.
Today's episode is a little different. Instead of troubleshooting one unfinished project, we're talking about how to avoid having unfinished business in the first place, especially with Iron Viz just around the corner.
And whether the theme has just been announced or you're bracing for it to drop, this is the perfect moment to plan your approach. We'll share our tips for choosing and shaping your idea, finding and preparing your data, getting feedback at the right time, staying motivated through what could become a marathon, and making sure you actually cross the finish line with your best viz.
Think of this episode as your Iron Viz survival guide, part pep talk, part strategy session, and definitely sprinkled with a bit of our unfinished business chaos.
It's the world's largest data visualization competition. 3 worthy contestants take centre stage in front of a global audience and have 20 minutes to deliver a compelling and awe-inspiring story of the same dataset. I wonder whether it's worth exploring a little bit, like what people are getting into, because Kimberly's obviously been through the process. Like, if you do actually achieve the goal of placing in the top 3 of the IMBs, like what are you actually signing up for?
You really don't know what you're signing up for until you actually get there. Like it's really hard to kind of describe the emotion and the feeling and all the hard work that goes into preparing for something like that. I can't remember. I think we had about a month with the data set before we had to go on stage, and it's having that deadline, I think, is quite it was quite nerve-wracking, because when you're putting together a visualization, you kind of take your time and you're like, yeah, I'll just do it in my free time, but you just don't have the luxury of doing that with the finals. So it's a lot of work. You don't realize how much time you would need to spend on it, and a lot of kind of like iterations. Like, when I first got my data set and I had an idea, like I had 4 or 5 different ideas before I landed on the final one. But yeah, it's an experience, and I'm glad I did it, but I don't know whether I'd want to do something like that again.
So have you entered subsequent?
No.
Okay.
I did have a silly thought that I might enter this year's one, depending on what the topic is.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I think my Iron Viz days are behind.
How many years would it be between being on stage and re-entering if you did enter this year?
So I was on stage in 2022.
Yeah.
So yeah, a couple of years.
So maybe that's just the decompression time you need between.
Yeah, maybe. But then a part of me is also like, oh, I wonder if I can try to be like the first person to come back twice. That competitive side of me. But I don't know whether I'd want to do that to myself or not.
I think it might be interesting actually to see whether there's a similar pattern with other past finalists when they've been on stage, whether they enter the following year. Well, I don't think they can, because they have to judge the following year. Is that right?
The winner will judge. So we'll judge the following year. But I think the like CJ from the UK. He was one of the finalists when I was a finalist, and I think he did enter the next year or maybe the year after. So he continued to enter. Maybe he just had the same thought that I had, like, maybe I'll just try one more time and I'd try to get back onto that stage. But his viz was actually really, really amazing. That the one he did afterwards. Unfortunately, he didn't make it through to the final.
Yeah.
I sometimes wonder whether the real prize is being top 10 but not top 3.
yeah, because you do get that that title of making the top 10, but you don't have to go through the stress of everything else after that.
Because they're quite different, aren't they? What you're doing for the feeder is very different to what you're doing for the actual
Yes.
stage side of things.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can't really talk to anyone about
Right.
what you're doing for the stage. Like, you have a supervisor who can help you along and, you know, help you bounce ideas off and give you some feedback. But the qualifiers, you can reach out to anyone. And, you know, Sarah Bartlett runs the feedback sessions where she gets a whole group of people together. You can sign up for that. You can sign up for as many feedback sessions as you want, but you really don't have that luxury when you're working on, you know, the final.
Yeah. And that's top tip number 1 from us to finish your Iron Viz. Take advantage of those feedback opportunities. You will get stuck, and bouncing ideas
Yes.
off other
Yes.
people will help you get unstuck.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So we will grab the link for that and put that in the show notes. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's a fantastic initiative that runs every year that I've definitely taken advantage of more than a couple of times, and yeah, can highly recommend.
Yeah.
It's just people from the community giving up their time to help others sort of reach that finish line.
And how did that help you last year, Heather? Because I know you signed up for a couple of sessions.
Yeah, it was good. It allowed me to kind of focus what I was doing, what I was trying to get across, and yeah, just bounce those ideas off of somebody else, see whether or not what I was trying to do was actually like hitting all the points that that I thought it was, and just get somebody else's perspective on what I could do next, and yeah, just a couple of different ideas about what was possible and definitely worthwhile. And you just
Yeah.
come away
And I
with
think
that energy, you know.
yeah, yeah. And the good thing is you don't even need a finished viz. Like, you can go in with a half cooked idea, and yeah, and still feel like you've kind of made some progress after those
Yeah,
sessions.
I think doing like booking something in early is good. Like, plan to go in with something that you haven't finished. That is like literally a half baked idea, because where you get that feedback, it allows you to actually take it on board and pivot. Where if you are closer to the end of the month, say, and you've already sort of poured your heart and soul into something
Mm.
before you take it for one of these feedback sessions, it is going to be much harder for you to take on any of that feedback. You are going to be very passionate about not having wasted time going down the wrong road. Yes, you're going
I've
to be a
had
lot more intense, I think.
I've had a different version of that, which is I've got because I usually do a floating layout, and you get so wedded to what you've done, and then towards the end you realise, oh, I want to add another thing in, but now
Yes.
you've got to resize the viz or resize everything, and because you've made it floating,
Yeah,
everything's got to be repositioned, and so you don't if you yeah if you don't plan it out, or you don't get feedback early, or you don't assess things early, it gets very hard to pivot later on, whether that's
yeah,
Yeah,
the entire idea
I
or
do
a
that
floating
too.
layout.
I'm a floater too, but a tip for that is I found that if you copy the dashboard before you change the dimensions, you've got like a reference to
Yeah,
kind of go back and move
nice.
things to exactly where they were before.
yes, yep. The other thing I tend to do is create I like to use a floating layout because it allows me to put an image behind it. And so I can get that, maybe a gradient effect or
Mhm.
something going on in the background there. But uh, I also like things, staying the size that I made them. So I will create a container that's the size of the dashboard and float that on the dashboard, and then I will put in all the spacing to make it look like it's floating, but it's actually really controlled. And that way, when you resize the viz, it doesn't resize that main container, and then you have complete control over what happens from there on out.
Mhm.
You do deal with, container hierarchy type fun. So it's a mixed blessing, but I like it. I like it orderly.
Nice.
Yeah, that's a good tip.
So yeah, that's a
They're
good thing.
both great tips because that always catches me out.
Yeah, especially with Iron Viz, because I think you dive in thinking, I need to get this started. I just need to do something. And so
Mm-hmm.
maybe you haven't quite thought out exactly how big
Yeah.
that
It's
needs to
gonna,
be.
yeah. Yeah. And I think, once you're working on it and you start researching and finding more data, you're like, I want to add some more stuff,
Yeah.
It's yeah, it's unavoidable, I think.
Yeah. And so
You
I
can
guess
almost,
that jumps into, one of my tips is with that data source, resist the temptation to do more research. Try and find a data set that is going to serve your needs and that is not going to require you to troll through multiple versions of Disney's end of year financial statement in order to pull out specific statistics and then go through to Netflix's and so on and so forth, because that is tedious and wastes a lot of time.
That sounds like you've had experience with that, Heather.
It's very specific as an example, yeah. Yeah, so try and research your data sets. Yeah, I have a plan to just file away some interesting data sets throughout the year and pull them out once the topic is announced and see, okay, which one of these is taking my fancy, and that's what I'm going to go with, and try not to research during Iron Viz because it is so bad. It is really, really hard. Definitely would not recommend doing that. How have you selected data sets previously, Kimberly?
Oh, the complete opposite of what you said, Heather. I'm very uh, I don't want to say unorganized, but kind of unorganized. So I do often, and you can probably see it in the Iron Viz entry that got me to the finals. I started off with an idea, and then halfway through my visualization, it kind of pivoted to another idea. So I kind of that's kind of the way I work. I start off with something and then I will go to do more research. I know you said, don't do more research, but that's kind of the way that I work, because I am so unorganized and I think about a million different things and my brain goes into a million different places and then I go down a million different rabbit holes. So yeah, I'm kind of researching and finding data like right until the last
Oh
minute.
yeah, and look, I can say this is my plan. The actual how I work is exactly what you've just described. That's how I've done my last two Iron Vizzes, and it's how pretty much all of my Tableau public work goes. Um, and I aspire to be organised. That's what I'm going to say. I aspire to be organised.
We'll see if that happens this
We shall
year.
see. And Steve, how about you selecting data sources?
yeah, for me, I've often wondered if I do it the wrong way around. So I always have quite a clear idea heading into Iron Viz. Something called Spring to Mind, it usually does. I don't have a problem with that. But then I find myself trying to fit the data to the idea. And that almost invariably gives me problems. And I suspect other people find this as well. I really think maybe
Yeah.
be better off finding some data that relates to the theme and then letting the story emerge. But that feels
Mhm.
braver because you don't really know what you're going to produce from that. But it sounds more aligned with what you do, Kimberly, which is perhaps
Yeah.
where I'm
Yeah,
failing.
exactly. And I'm happy to go where the data takes me,
Yeah,
if it kind of changes the story. But I guess, that also leans back to, another tip is that um, choose a topic. And I know that Tableau will give you a topic, but there are different topics within the topic, so to speak. Choose one that aligns with you and that, something that you're passionate about, because that will ultimately make it much more fun to work on, um, and your chances of finishing are a lot higher. So to your point, Steve, if you have an idea or something that interests you, yeah, you can go and find the data that kind of fits. But I guess don't be afraid to kind of pivot into another
Yeah.
way if the data tells you a different story.
And that's what we've found so far in the two Unfinished Vizness sessions, isn't it? As people have got a certain amount of the way through, and during discussion, perhaps other stories have emerged in the data.
Mm.
So you've got to be a bit open
Yeah.
to that. I think that's where
Yeah,
I've
exactly.
struggled in the past.
You want to go down that path, and
Yeah.
you're not straying from that path.
How have you overcome it?
In the end, the ones that have been most successful for me, not that I've ever made top 10 or anything like that, have been where that sort of progression of data has just unfolded. So I remember one about immigration, or it was something along those lines, and I got a really clear data set from the US, and then I could delve into stories on particular famous immigrants to the United States, and that was quite an easy data flow to go through because I wasn't trying to join data sets together. I'd got a key theme, and then the rest of the story could emerge. So it sounds more like what you've described, Kimberly. Other cases, I've tried to do one covering the Great Walks around New Zealand. I've had an idea, and then I've been finding myself trying to mash unrelated data sets together. And often what I found I get stuck is there's so much time finding the data, preparing the data, finding the story, and then now I've got a day left for the actual visualization. So giving yourself the best chance of success in those earlier stages, and then allowing something to emerge, opening yourself up some pathways to some successful ideas is probably a really good tip.
Yeah. And you mentioned that timeline, Steve, like making sure that I know, having that rigid timeline, a lot of people might not, work that way, but you do need to make sure you have enough time to put something together after you've done all the research.
Yeah.
So, maybe set yourself a goal, 2 weeks before the deadline, I want to have all my data and my story. Then I can have 2 solid weeks to build it and then, put it all together.
Yeah. I often find the themes or the judging criteria quite interesting because it's design, storytelling, and analysis, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know where all that data prep time really fits in there. Is that the analysis? Is it still a bit of design? You feel like I put quite a lot of time into that prep or analysis and finding a story and leave myself less time in design. But with just 3 criteria, you really can't afford to sacrifice one of those. You've really
No,
got to
you
cover all
can't.
of them.
Have you been a judge before,
No,
Steve?
no, I have often thought whether I should. It sounds a very interesting experience. What about you?
I think it'd be so hard. No, I haven't. I've opted to participate in the feedback sessions,
Yeah,
but because when you're judging, you obviously can't give
yeah,
feedback. But I feel like there's so much pressure on the judges, um, and there's so many, 200 entries a
yeah,
year, and I know they split it out, but going through and looking through all the criteria, I think would be such a hard job.
yeah.
That's it. I think after October last year, once all of the entries were in and you could sort of look through all of those entries, the very first thing I posted on Twitter was, I feel for the judges. You guys got a really hard job. There was so much fantastic stuff that people
Yeah.
were producing, and that's not to say that anybody that's looking to give it a go for the first time shouldn't. There are clearly people who were there giving it a go for their first time, and I think we were all cheering everybody on equally
Yeah.
in that sense. It is a great experience
Yeah,
to just give it a go, see where you end up, and I
yeah.
think
It's a
yeah,
step up, isn't it, from sort of
exactly.
doing a one-off visualization. It's like
Mhm.
trying to stretch yourself out a little bit. Don't ever feel you can't enter. If you track yourself across a few years, you'll see a definite growth between the first
Oh,
one you try,
definitely.
and it will take the
Yeah,
game up a level from what you're currently doing.
Yeah, and
definitely.
it's a tip I'll borrow from David Tanner's presentation at Visit. He talks about getting comfortable doing it in public, and his tip there was to include in your viz a sheet, an extra dashboard, just something that explains in plain text what it was you're trying to do. The idea being that while you might not have got that across, you may not have actually achieved the thing that you were trying to do. You can at least explain what it is you were trying to do, and it may be something subtle that people might not have noticed otherwise. So it's sort of that opportunity to have that extra connection with your viewing audience. Potentially you've got that ability to sort of point out, hey, this is where I was going, and maybe I didn't pull it off exactly, but it gives the opportunity for people to give you feedback that is specific to the things that you were aiming to do. But maybe also draws attention to those things that maybe are a bit subtle that might get missed otherwise.
Yeah, that's a great tip. I missed David's session, but that's a really great tip.
Back on the judges, that's a really interesting sort of comment, sort of putting yourself in their shoes, because it probably is quite a hard job, but it's also very easy when you're participating not to think about someone having to judge your viz and the position they're in. One year they actually sent some feedback, what the judges thought of your viz. And one of the
Yes.
things that struck me was I got some feedback on the color choice I'd used, and I thought that's just dumb feedback because the colors directly relate to the story. They were the colors in the logo of the football team that the story was about. But if you step back from that, you realize I hadn't put that logo on the viz because I didn't want to infringe any copyright. So
Yeah.
a judge or an audience with no prior knowledge is going to have no idea those colors are relevant, and they're just going to go, they're an odd choice for a data viz. So try not to assume anything about your audience, because you've got a judge there who's going to have to look at it in amongst however many other entries they have to look at. And you don't want them having to guess or fill in the blanks.
Yeah, I think in my first Iron Viz competition entry, I, through dumb luck, just happened to do that. I was visualizing Formula One results and had used the team colours, and somewhere in there I put that each of the teams is sort of represented by these colours in the like in the broadcasts and all these things. And because otherwise it is a very strange choice. There are like multiple different blues, and they're subtly different, but there's like no yellow. Like why the particular set of colors? So yes, through dumb luck I did stumble onto that one. But because otherwise it doesn't make any sense. There's like three greens now, and how is anybody else who's coming from outside the world of Formula One supposed to understand
I
that?
know that. Yeah. And just on that growth and that feedback, Steve, you can actually contact there's an email address, but ask for the scores that you receive for each of the categories. And I did that for the first couple of years. And just going back to growth, I was able to see, my scores and how that has gotten better over time. So the first entry that I did versus the second versus the third. So, just showing that growth, and every year you enter, the next year you're going to do, that little bit better.
Did you find there was a particular sort of part of the criteria where it you lifted more over time out of interest?
I found which criteria I was not so good at.
Yeah. Which one was that?
And that was always, rated low against the other ones, and that was always analysis. I always had a problem with analysis, but it did get better, over time. But that was always my lowest ranking one.
Yeah. There's a tool that Atomicro's put together for ChatGPT, and Viz Critique Pro, I think it's called. We'll have to put a link for that in the show notes as well. But I used it on one of my Vizes, and the feedback that I got for it was really, really well thought out. It's really well put together, and it will look at many different aspects and give you actionable feedback. So there's maybe the opportunity to run your Iron Viz entry through that a couple of times as you're developing it and see how those things change. And I mean, being ChatGPT, you can probably get a bit clever with your prompts and start to say, "Hey, act as an Iron Viz judge. How would you score this? These are the criteria that we're looking for." It does seem to sort of look at those things, that analysis and storytelling and design as ideas, but yeah, get it to sort of hone in on those specifically and just see what feedback it gives you. You don't have to take it, but yeah, it just maybe gives you something to benchmark against.
Cool. I haven't used this tool. That sounds like it'd be such a useful tool, especially for something like Iron Viz.
Yeah.
Basically, the more feedback you get from the more different sources, the better your chances of hitting something that's going to resonate with the eventual audience.
Exactly.
Yep, definitely.
And you said earlier, Steve, about you didn't want to put the logos in, you didn't want to be infringing the copyright. So it's probably a good time to touch on the rules. So there are some rules about your Iron Viz entry that they do give you to work within, and not including sort of trademarks and copyrighted material is one of those things. So just be careful about what it is that you're including, because we'd hate for anybody to sort of be top 10-ish, but sort of not, because something that they didn't know about. So yeah, definitely worth just making sure that you have rights to use those images that you have. Given we have this generative AI stuff now, you can generate images. There's a lot of different programs that you can use to sort of generate them yourself. So yeah, just be mindful, and look, maybe somebody who can whip something up for you as well. That's that's not against the rules either.
More recently, they've kind of tried to pare back on the amount of imagery that people put in anyway, haven't they? Or am I misremembering that?
I can't. I've seen it, but it doesn't mean it hasn't happened. Yeah, I think.
Oh, that's interesting.
There was something around accessibility and text in images
Certainly.
from the last one, I think.
Ah, yep. Okay. Yeah. That makes sense. Text and images, it's hard. Like the screen reader's not going to be able to.
Having
access
said
it.
that, there are accessibility options within Tableau, so you can, for the charts, put in like a description of what's going on in the chart, and I think you can do it for the images as well.
Nice.
You can put in alt text for the images, but if you've got a long block of text, I don't know whether there's a character limit on the alt text that Tableau provides. So just something to be mindful of, I think.
Yeah. So, but I think there was a rule about sort of having blocks of text as images, but it was like okay for headers. But yeah, I did go through, and any of those like headers where I'd created images for headers, I'd put that alt text in just to sort of be able to make it accessible for screen readers and the like. So yeah, I went through putting in a lot of alt text before I submitted it. I think just on the text, I think there was a rule where there was a minimum font size, and I think we were discussing this a couple of weeks ago. And Kimberly, you weren't aware that there was a lower limit.
Yeah, I like when the last couple of years that I was doing it. I don't think they had that, so it must have been something new that they've brought in. Because I know I didn't use size 12 font on my Viz. So yeah, maybe in the last few years.
Yeah. So what do we think it was, Steve? Was it
I thought it was
11?
12. Yeah,
Yeah,
12.
11. Yeah, something like that. So it's not. It's definitely not the default font size
Mm.
Mm.
that will come out if you create text boxes or in your tooltips and things like that. So it is something that you will have to change. So it may be worth, before you start, changing that in the workbook
Good tip.
settings so that you don't spend a great deal of time trying to find all of the places where you've used a different size font. Just as a tip.
Yeah. And on that, maybe make your like dashboard bigger and longer to
Yeah,
accommodate for that
Yeah,
bigger text size.
that's it. So
and these are
there's
things you can do before you've even had your idea. So if you want to actually
Yeah.
make a start, you can start your template workbook.
mm. So do you have a tendency to start with chart vomit? So
I
it's
might
something.
normally start with a sketch. It's there's a
It's something
sketch,
that
and
You start
then
with a sketch.
Kat Greenbrook talks about in the Data Storyteller's Handbook, that you will create charts for yourself. And
for
she
sure.
refers to them as chart vomit. And it's a matter of getting things up on the screen and looking at the shape of it, looking at the distributions, looking at the way that different categories play off against one another. And so it's a bit of that analysis, but it also is a bit of that design, I find. So you just start throwing things out and seeing, it's like, oh, okay, so that, okay, as a histogram, it does this. What if I turn it into a line chart? What if I,
Mhm.
split it by colors, things like that. So it kind of falls into both of those categories for me. And sometimes it can be, that's fantastic. That's exactly what I want to have in the finished
Mhm.
Viz. I'll put that idea away. Don't keep all of it. And maybe name the tabs so that you know which ones you
Oh
keep and which
yeah.
ones you
Not sheet one, sheet two. No, that doesn't
no.
work.
Sheet two, copy two. Yes.
Sheet 150.
I think
Yeah.
if you call them vomit 1 and vomit 2 and vomit 3, that's a lot
There you
better.
go.
That's a bit more descriptive.
Yeah.
That's it. And then you can, yes, like, no, this is gold. We want this one. So yeah,
If
there's
you
exploration.
want to see how that works, for those listening, Andy Kriebel does a Watch Me Viz series, and in some of those you can see him going through that process of exploring a data set over multiple views in Tableau and then hitting on the ones that he thinks will tell a story. It's a very much a technique.
Mm. Yeah, and then you can take it back to that data prep stage if something comes up and you realize we've got it at the wrong level of granularity. Let's do something with it. Yeah, you can maybe build something from there. But yeah, initially I find I want to dive in and muck around with the data.
Mm.
Yep, yep. I'm the same. I'm the same.
That is the analysis, though, really, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. So how much
Even though I score so poorly on analysis, I'm probably not doing it correctly.
how much time do you reckon that you spend on an Iron Viz entry?
Are we talking time thinking and procrastinating or time doing?
Yeah, or actually doing.
Wow, it depends. It really does. I think it's a question that people hate to ask. After Iron Viz is all said and done, people will sort of toy with the idea of how many hours did I spend on that? Oh, I don't know. I'd hate to know, those kinds of things. Um, I got curious and I actually pulled out
Mm.
some data. I remembered that I had this Rescue Time subscription going, and so it was looking at everything that I was doing on my computer. So I looked at it for the month of October, and I could see how much time I spent, on that research part, how much time I spent in Tableau, in data prep tools, and how much time I spent with like creating images and those kinds of
Mhm.
things. And it was a lot. So I created a viz out of it in the end, and that was my Iron Viz marathon Viz. So yeah, there's a great deal of time that went into it,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
yeah, I guess I was both shocked and not. It was, yeah, it looks like a big number, but also it's probably not. You know,
What did it add up to out of interest? I know I
Yeah.
looked at your viz at the time, but I can't remember. I've got in my mind it was like approaching 40 hours or something.
I think it was 40 hours, but here's the thing, like I can't even remember at this point. So how good's that?
You've
I'm going to look it up.
you've blanked it out of your mind.
That's it. That's it. That's what we do. So
I'm also intrigued on what the minimum time is because I know that there used to be some people who'd pride themselves on leaving it to the last minute and then almost crack out a Makeover Monday style Iron Viz entry.
so
And they weren't too worried about winning, but you don't have
Yeah,
to be
yeah.
constrained when think, oh God, I've got to commit weeks and weeks to this.
there was a 40 in the final figure.
But also
But it
a
was
bigger
40
number in front.
seconds. It was 80 hours, 16 minutes, and 40 seconds.
Oh wow.
80 hours.
So that was a lot.
Yes. Yeah.
So that is absolutely not the expected amount. But a few people saw that number and went, yeah, mine was probably like that. So I guess be aware of how much time you are spending on it. And the one thing that I did in that viz was also look at what my Fitbit was telling me,
Haha.
data that was coming out
Mm.
of that for that month as well, because there was not a lot of sleep happening. And so that leads me into my next tip is get some sleep. Brains work better when they're well rested. So all of those insurmountable technical problems that turn out to be that you're just clicking on the wrong thing um, tend not to happen when you have had 8 hours sleep. So you save yourself time in the long run. It doesn't feel like it at the time, but it is true. And if you try and listen to my advice, I promise that I'll try and listen too.
We'll hold you to that.
Yeah, listen to your own advice, Heather.
That's it. That's it. So I'm hoping if somebody else is listening to me, then I will have to do it myself.
What do you reckon the minimum and the sort of almost recommended time amount should be? If someone's considering giving it a go, think, do I have the time? Should they be going, I need 5 hours, I need 10 hours, I need 100 hours, or 80 hours, 6 minutes and 42 seconds?
I'm going to be a pain and say spend as much time as you
Yeah,
feel comfortable spending.
Yeah.
Like if
it's
you
a
feel
fair
like
answer.
it's dragging on and it's a chore, then don't spend any
Yeah,
more time if you're not having fun. Like it's supposed to be you're doing it in your own time.
yeah,
If there's something else you'd rather be doing, then go out and do it.
yeah,
I think it's maybe smart to work backwards to think about how much time am I willing to invest in this,
yeah,
and
Exactly.
then work
Yeah.
backwards to figure out, okay, so how much time does that leave me to look at the data analysis? How much time does that leave me for the storytelling? How much time does that leave me for the design? How would I change my design if I've got this grand idea, but if I say to myself, okay, I'm really only going to put 10 hours into this, how do I pull it back in order to get done what I need to get done? What is the MVP, which is one
yeah,
of my most hated phrases. But yes, sometimes it's, focus on the V, the viable, as opposed to the minimum. But yeah, how can you get something that you're proud of out of the amount of time that you're
yeah,
committing to put into it? So, maybe it's that 80-20 rule. What's going to get me 80% of the way there to this grand vision that I have, and don't worry about the 20%, because
yeah,
Yeah.
goodness knows that you're going to spend 80% of your time niggling over that last 20%. Yes, trying to fix up those little boundaries and the just the all of the buffers and things. lines that you want to make disappear, and
making sure it's all aligned, and
yes, exactly.
because we're floaters, you know, so it has to be aligned.
That's it. So we probably spend 80% of that that design time poking at those tiny little things that, you know, it's nice to have, but maybe is not the best use of our time. Get some sleep instead.
Check out the show notes for everything we've discussed. Like, share, and subscribe if you found this useful.
And if you don't finish your Iron Viz, or you've got another project that you'd like to progress, jump over to our website and apply to be a guest. We'd love to help you bring your idea to a successful conclusion.
And finally, good luck to everybody who does choose to participate in Iron Viz this year. Remember, win or learn, you can't lose. And we look forward to seeing you next time on Unfinished Vizness.
Perhaps we should talk about what Iron Viz isn't.
Oh,
That's a good one.
I like that. It's not business dashboards, is it?
It's a bit sad in a way, isn't it? It would be awesome to see someone with a really cool business dashboard make it through. Maybe they'll make that the criteria this year. Maybe it'll be a real-world fake data business dashboard.
Yeah.
Could be. I think would it be more difficult to discover the passion in that?
Nah, yeah, quite possibly.
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't like to do business dashboards in my own time. I know people do, but
yeah, it's pushing the envelope. You know, it could be spite. You know, the idea that in the office wanted to go with. It's like, I'm going to prove a point. Public, and show them Ken Furlich thinks it's good, so therefore it is.